Nashville.
This is the CBS Evening News with Roger Mudd substituting for Walter Cronkite.
Good evening. The White House announced today that the stalled Middle East peace talks will be moving to the United States. President Carter, Egyptian President Sadat, and Israeli Prime Minister Begin will meet on September 5th at Camp David, Maryland. It's seen as a last-ditch effort to salvage the negotiations that began 9 months ago and to establish a framework for peace. Marvin Cowell reports.
The summit is the result of a presidential initiative. The announcement came from White House spokesman Jody Powell.
All three leaders agree that there is no task more important than this search for peace. Secretary Vance has informed the President that both Prime Minister Begin and President Sadat have welcomed this meeting, and the President is gratified by their response.
Prime Minister Begin in Israel and President Sadat of Egypt, who has been meeting with Secretary Vance, said they are looking forward to the summit.
I would like to say that I am very glad that President Sadat accepted the invitation of the President of the United States. I wish also to say that we owe congratulations to Secretary Vance because he succeeded in a very delicate diplomatic mission. Let us hope that this meeting, which is a very important one, will bring forth results for which our nations, as I believe, do pray, and other nations too, namely results which will make possible to bring peace to the Middle East.
We have agreed upon that last night, and we have surveyed the whole situation, not only the situation here in the Middle East, but all over the area.
Powell said the summit was to seek a framework for peace, suggesting the president may once again push for an agreed-upon declaration of principles that would serve as the basis for follow-up negotiations between Egypt and Israel. But according to some senators briefed on the surprise announcement earlier today, the president is not planning to serve up an American peace plan at this time, but he is reserving the right to make suggestions to bridge expected gaps between the two sides. The president's initiative is recognized for what it is, a high roll of the dice, what one Senate aide called pressure cooker diplomacy, designed to move both President Sadat and Prime Minister Begin towards greater compromises and concessions. The alternative, as seen by the White House, may be a renewal of tension and possibly conflict in the Middle East, compounded by Arab oil pressures. According to one scenario, Secretary of State Vance may be returning to the Middle East within 2 weeks to prepare the ground for this unprecedented Camp David summit. Marvin Cowell, CBS News, Washington.
Secretary Vance said that the Camp David summit now makes the United States a full partner in the Middle East peace negotiations, something that Sadat had been insisting on.
Hi, I'm Sandy Duncan, and I'm trying to get things ready. I'm having a party later, and one of the things we're going to have is my favorite snack cracker, Wheat Thins, the light little cracker with a big wheat taste. Wheat Thins are just loaded with natural whole wheat, so they're a delicious and wholesome snack. Great, just like this, or with your favorite dip. Wheat Thins, you'll love them. I got to get dressed now. Well, maybe just one more.
Wheat Thin snack crackers, baked only by Nabisco.
You are about to take a totally new look at the 1978 Chrysler Cordoba through the camera of Anthony Edgeworth, contributing photographer, Esquire magazine.
To me, as a photographer, Cordoba is a classic. It's the kind of car that fits a very special way of life. Look at the attention to detail, the precise design. It's what so many of us aspire to. It's young, it's spirited, it's the picture of style.
Chrysler Cordoba for 1978. Now, put yourself in the picture.
For more than a year, Philadelphia authorities have been contesting with members of a radical group called MOVE, who defied health regulations by turning a mansion into a squalid commune. Today, that battle, which had been peaceful, ended in bloodshed. John Slattery of WCAU-TV Philadelphia has the story.
Shortly after dawn, bulldozers knocked down the fences surrounding the three-story Victorian-style house that had been occupied by a group called MOVE. MOVE refused to respond to charges of housing and health code violations over a year ago. Police spent a year staking out the neighborhood, and this spring spent almost 2 months trying to starve out MOVE members and prevent violence. The group ignored a deadline for vacating, and so this morning police ordered them to surrender. The orders were ignored. The first police sweep through the house was fruitless. MOVE members had hidden in a basement. An hour later, as fire hoses flooded the basement, several shots rang out, answered by a barrage of police gunfire. In all, 1 police officer was killed, 13 people wounded, including at least 8 police and firemen. 2 MOVE members were hospitalized, 1, the black man, on the ground. 12 people were arrested. Police say they will be charged with murder. John Slattery for CBS News, Philadelphia.
The federal government, state and local officials, and even the Hooker Chemical Company itself are pledging aid to families in the Love Canal district of Niagara Falls, where dumped poisonous chemicals have been seeping from the ground. But the controversy today centers on who proposed residential development of the dump site. Gary Shepard reports.
As families with pregnant women and small children moved out of their Love Canal homes today and into surplus military housing, New York State officials announced plans to evacuate all 97 families who live along both sides of the canal before any attempt is made to clean up the former chemical dump.
We will be relocating the families prior to any construction work beginning. Once the families are relocated, the work will go on with the assessment of the homes, and a price will be arranged with the individual families for the purchase of the homes.
So you're going to buy out everybody who lives on the edge of the canal?
Adjacent to the canal area itself, yes, sir, we are.
Hooker Chemical Company sold the dump site to the Niagara Falls Board of Education in 1953, and this school was built on part of it. Hooker claims it was forced to sell and did so reluctantly.
Hooker acceded to the desires of the Board of Education, who wanted to put a school in the area, reluctantly, under threat of condemnation, and transferred the property at a very nominal stipend, and had warned them about the future use of the property. And our deed of transfer quite clearly stated that the Board of Education would assume all risks associated with the property and any injuries sustained from the chemicals stored thereunder.
The company bases its claim in part on this copy of a letter from Hooker to the president of the school board, dated 1957, in which the terms of the deal were spelled out. Attempts by CBS News to confirm Hooker Chemical's story have thus far been unsuccessful. It appears that everyone who sat on the Board of Education here in 1953 is now dead. Gary Shepard, CBS News, Niagara Falls, New York.
When you're a lifeguard, you practice all you can, because saving a few seconds may save a few lives. But now comes Miller time. Time to head for the best tasting beer you can find. America's quality beer, Miller High Life.
If you've got the time, we've got the beer.
Why couldn't he stop in time? He misjudged following distance by trying to estimate car lengths. The 2-second rule works easily at any speed.
When the car in front passes a landmark, start counting. 1001, 1002. You should reach 2 before the landmark.
Learn more in the driving skills book, free from participating Shell dealers. Come to Shell for answers.
In a carefully orchestrated ceremony on the steps of New York City Hall, President Carter today signed the bill designed to rescue the city financially. It guarantees more than $1.5 billion in long-term loans. Mr. Carter said it provides breathing space for New Yorkers to restore financial and economic self-sufficiency. Richard Wagner found the process already has begun.
Gus Sanfilippo, an executive with a New York-based clothing firm, moved back to the city 3 months ago. The Sanfilippos had left in the early 70s, driven out by the high cost of New York living. They came back because they see an improved economic situation here and because they couldn't adapt to the suburban lifestyle.
we were never together. If something had to be done, my daughter had to go somewhere, somebody had to take her. Now, back here in the city, we're doing things as a family, which to me is very important.
Johnny Orta is another native New Yorker, but he never left the city. The manager of a hardware store, he could afford to move out, but he doesn't want to. The Orta family lives in the Bronx and likes it. They intend to stay here.
Everything is at your hand. You go downstairs for anything you want. Clothes, you don't have to go far or travel anywhere far to get anything you want.
Everything's in the neighborhood.
Everything is in the neighborhood. Clothes, food, whatever.
The economies New York has adopted in the last 3 years have given this city's middle class new confidence they can afford to live here. The belt tightening has even impressed one of the severest critics of the city's past fiscal policies, the man who led the fight against the loan guarantees, Senator William Proxmire.
They've moved in the direction of a balanced budget every year since 1975. They've cut their deficit. They've cut it sharply. They have laid off people. They have held down their spending increases. And their revenues have increased. New York has got great economic potential and resources. They're going to do well economically in the future in all likelihood. If that happens, and I'm convinced that they can and in all likelihood will balance their budget.
Since 1975, through layoffs and attrition, New York has dropped more than 50,000 municipal employees from the city's payroll. These include some 10,000 teachers and other school personnel, about 3,000 sanitation workers, just under 2,000 firemen, and 6,000 police officers. Critics of the cuts say they leave the city short of vital services. Proponents say there are even more job cuts to be made. Pensions cost the city $1.2 billion last year. Existing pension plans are almost impossible to trim, but the city's newly negotiated pension agreements are more economical. The city pays $1 billion a year in welfare costs, almost exactly the amount of its current budget deficit.
The people of this particular moment are paying for the sins of the last 12 or more years of the prior administrations that gave too much. Now you can defend it in part by saying it was an error of the heart. We gave because of conscience and magnanimity and so forth, but it was foolish. You cannot give what you don't have.
Today's loan guarantees will allow the city to cut its interest payments on short-term, high-interest loans by consolidating its debt. This will save additional millions of dollars every year. It's been a struggle, but for now, the nation's major city seems safe from the recent real prospect of bankruptcy. Richard Wagner, CBS News, New York.
No city was harder hit by riots during the racial turmoil of 1967 than Detroit. The causes of those disturbances excited instant attention, and as Bob Fall reports, a search directed from the White House for a conspiracy that was never found.
Rioting in Detroit began July 23, 1967, and when it ended 8 days later, 43 people had died, 6,000 had been arrested, and property losses were estimated at least $80 million. Many politicians felt the riots were started by radical groups which conspired to incite violence. But 1,300 pages of FBI documents just released under the Freedom of Information Act show that despite tips from Gerald Ford, Spiro Agnew, and top Justice Department executives, police agencies were unable to find any evidence of conspiracy. What the documents do show is that former President Lyndon Johnson repeatedly pressured then FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover to find information which could embarrass Michigan Governor George Romney, then a leading presidential hopeful. A White House aide quoted in this memo of August 3, 1967, asked Hoover to obtain Romney's radio tapes to show, quote, that Governor Romney had vacillated back and forth as to whether federal troops should be called into Detroit. The memo adding, quote, the White House did not desire for anyone outside to realize that they were attempting to obtain these tapes for the president. Asked about the memo, Romney said that because of politics, federal troops were deployed 12 hours late, and then only after he was forced to concede in writing that the situation was out of control. The documents also show that President Johnson was so certain there was a conspiracy, Hoover said Johnson told him, quote, to keep my men busy to find a central character to it, to watch and see, and we will find some central theme. But the FBI did not. Bob Fall, CBS News, Detroit.
What do doctors recommend to avoid constipation?
exercise, liquids, and a diet rich in bulk. But when you occasionally need a laxative, remember doctors recommend Metamucil more often than any other laxative. Metamucil contains no chemical stimulants. It's made from grain, rich in bulk, to give gentle, effective relief. Metamucil. The way to overcome constipation is the natural way. But if not nature, Metamucil.
Here I am, father of the bride. I can't even tie my tie just because my arthritis kicked up. Mary, will you help me out?
I'll do your tie, Jim. You take your Anacin.
When even simple movement can cause pain, Anacin, with the pain reliever most recommended by doctors for arthritis, brings more freedom of movement without pain. Relieves minor pain and its stiffness for hours.
You sure act like that Anacin worked.
It worked fine.
Anacin.
The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration reported last month it had received reports of more than 11,000 tire failures and 29 deaths tied to the Firestone 500 steel-belted radio. But at hearings in Washington today, a Firestone official testified there was no basis for ordering a recall of the estimated 13 million Firestone 500s still on the road. Richard Roth reports.
Lawyer Patrick McCartan said if complaints about the 500 seemed disproportionately high, it was because they had been solicited by the government, not just volunteered. In tests, he said, the tire's performance compared favorably with other brands. And he said that when Firestone officials were able to examine tires involved in accidents, they found that most had failed for reasons not related to manufacture or design. A tire displayed by one witness, McCartan said, had been weakened by a poor repair job long before the tire failed.
Our management is itself extremely concerned that as a result of the extensive media attention which has been given to this controversy, there are many members of the motoring public who now perceive the Radio 500 as an unsafe tire. Firestone has persisted, however, because it remains convinced that this is a reliable tire and contains no safety-related defect of the kind claimed by the Office of Defects Investigation.
But it was also revealed that the motoring public was not alone in complaining about the Radial 500. A series of confidential letters to Firestone from an official of Montgomery Ward department stores questioned the basic quality of the tire, which Ward sold under the name 8000 Series Grappler. Describing epidemic problems, the official wrote, "We were given a bad product." Firestone then agreed to help the store cover the cost of refunds to customers by paying Ward's $500,000. Richard Roth, CBS News, Washington.
For months, drug officials have been warning about the dangers of the chemical PCP, an hallucinogenic drug popular particularly with the young. But the House Narcotics Committee heard today that more than 14% of the population between the ages of 18 and 25 has used it at least once, and that its use is on the upswing. Barry Sarafin reports.
Members of Congress, federal and local authorities were unanimous in their sharp warnings about PCP, sometimes called angel dust. Cheap and easy to manufacture, offering enormous profits to dealers, producing a floating euphoric high, it can also, they said, produce severe disorientation, violence, and psychotic behavior for days or even weeks. California Congressman Norman Mineta from San Jose, the major PCP center, listed some horror stories.
One man murdered his parents, another stabbed a tiny baby to death, another ripped out his own eyes with his own hands. Users themselves die not only from massive overdoses, but also from what is called, quote, behavioral toxicity, unquote. People fall from great heights, burn to death, drive their cars into large stationary objects, or drown in a few inches of water because they couldn't recognize the danger or couldn't cope with it, or simply because they were too high to do anything about it, even more.
PCP can be smoked, snorted, or taken orally. Authorities estimate that nearly 7 million Americans have tried it, most of them 12 to 25 years old. Officials are baffled by the widespread use of PCP in view of the potential risks, but some witnesses said the danger itself might be part of the appeal to young people.
The very fact that it is risky
is for many youngsters appealing in the same sense that driving a motorcycle at 90 miles an hour may be appealing for the very element of hazard.
One teenage former user told the committee he turned to PCP because of peer pressure, personal problems, and boredom with marijuana.
It really numbed me. Right after I had smoked it, I felt really numb. I had really lost my senses, more or less. Even if I touched things, like I almost walked into a fire and it really, it didn't matter.
Manufacturing and distributing PCP has been seen as mainly an amateur operation, but officials said today that large, well-organized heroin traffickers are now involved. Witnesses said veterinarians and researchers have some limited, legitimate uses for PCP, but Congress is considering tightening controls on it and on some of its principal ingredients. Barry Seraphin, CBS News, Washington.
The stock market was up today in trading of 34,300,000 shares.
We're at the World Sado Karate Organization to test the strength of Elmer's glue all. We cut a board in half, then glued it together with Elmer's. Because when it comes to wood and most porous materials, Elmer's is incredibly strong. Is Elmer's strong enough to stand up to Master T. Nakamura? Yeah! Look, the Elmer's bond held. Elmer's was stronger than the wood itself.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Elmer's glue all, stronger than you'll ever need for most household jobs.
It's time I gave you folks a feeding lesson. He's getting too much to eat. Your dog isn't as active as that fellow, so too many calories can be unhealthy.
You mean feed him less?
No. Feed him Cycle 3, the first dry dog food for less active dogs. It's got 20% fewer calories than the leading dog food, but completely satisfies his appetite.
We sure learned our lesson about Cycle 3.
In bags or cans, Cycle, nutrition for the life of your dog.
First Lady Rosalynn Carter will head the U.S. delegation attending Saturday's funeral of Pope Paul VI at Vatican City. CBS News will broadcast live tomorrow's movement of the Pope's body to Rome and the funeral on Saturday. Today was the last full day that mourners could view the Pope's body, which has been lying in state at the papal retreat south of Rome. Bob McNamara reports.
Again today, thousands of mourners filed into the small papal summer palace at Castel Gandolfo to view the body of Pope Paul VI. Priests from the Vatican, including the late Pope's top aides, led the mourners in prayer. Tomorrow, after the coffin is sealed, the body will be moved to St. Peter's Basilica in nearby Rome, there to lie in state until Saturday's funeral mass. Late today at the Vatican, some of the cardinals who will elect Pope Paul's successor arrived to make burial arrangements for the Church's 262nd pontiff. Pope Paul will be buried in the crypt of St. Peter's Basilica alongside his predecessors John the 23rd and Pius the 12th. Here and elsewhere around Rome, unprecedented security measures were taking shape for the events surrounding the funeral. Police units across Italy have been placed on alert because of the ongoing threat of terrorist attacks. And special crowd control measures are planned in St. Peter's Square to handle the thousands expected to pay their last respects to the Pope alongside religious and political dignitaries from around the world. As workmen prepared Vatican gardens for the days ahead, Rome still remained unusually quiet despite the death and approaching funeral of a Pope. Bob McNamara, CBS News, Rome.
Every Pope has the right to fix the rules for the election of his successor. Pope Paul made one major innovation. Cardinals who have passed the age of 80 are ineligible to vote. There are today 130 cardinals in the Catholic Church. 15 are over 80, and they are disenfranchised by Pope Paul's ruling. Thus, a total of 115 cardinals are qualified to enter the secret conclave that will elect the next head of the Western world's oldest institution. Conclave means closed with a key. As in the past, the cardinals will be locked inside the Vatican Palace, and there they will live in absolute seclusion, voting 4 times a day in their election hall, the Sistine Chapel, until they reach a majority of 2/3 plus 1. Pope Pius XII was the first to require the extra vote, so that no one might think that a victorious cardinal had become Pope by voting for himself. With all 115 electors voting, the magic number will be 78. But what happens if the conclave is deadlocked, unable to reach that figure? Pope Paul thought of this also. He ruled that if, after 26 ballots, a full week of voting, the cardinals are still deadlocked, then a straight majority plus one will be sufficient. If, and only if, the cardinals agree unanimously on this procedure. The magic number then will be 59. Once inside, with the main entrances to the election hall bricked over, the cardinals will be kept in absolute ignorance of all that happens outside. No radios, no television, no newspapers, no magazines. Sleeping in small rooms within the Vatican Palace, the cardinals for the first time will be unattended except in cases of serious illness. It is said that at past conclaves, the cardinals' assistants were sometimes responsible for news leaks on election proceedings. And what about the celebrated smoke from the chimney of the Sistine Chapel, the smoke from the burning of the ballots? Pope Paul ruled that all ballots and all the cardinals' personal notes and jottings must indeed be burned, so as to leave no trace of the conclave's secret proceedings. And on the election of his successor, the old popular Roman tradition of the smoke signal will be preserved. Black smoke for inconclusive ballots, white smoke for an election. Some national churches will have their favorite son candidates. The Italians will still be the biggest national bloc with 23 cardinals, mostly of conservative Roman outlook. The Americans are second with 9 electors, and then the French with 7. But the Third World will be a major force, with 19 cardinals from Latin America, 11 from Asia, 12 from Africa. The ecclesiastical lobbying will be intense. Winston Burdett, CBS News, Vatican City.
Of the 9 eligible cardinals from the United States, only 8 are expected to attend the Vatican conclave. 69-year-old Cardinal John Wright, the ranking American at the Vatican, is in Boston for cataract surgery that will not be completed in time. That's the CBS Evening News this Tuesday. I'm Roger Mudd. Good night.
It comes in glory. The latest great Jaguar, the Jaguar XJS. Culmination of 40 years of building superb high-performance motor cars. Car and Driver says the car seems immune to the laws of physics. The S-Type is not only the best handling Jaguar ever built, it may well be the best handling 4-passenger car in the world. The S-Type Jaguar. Magnificent.
Denture wearers, you have a powerful enemy. The bacterial film called plaque, which grows on your dentures every day. But you have an even more powerful friend. New Mint Denture Cream. Denture Cream has a special formula for cleaning dentures, with 3 powerful ingredients to help brush away bacterial plaque, leaving your dentures fresh and clean. Yes, plaque is a powerful enemy, but New Mint Denture Cream is more powerful than plaque.
This has been the CBS Evening News, with Roger Mudd substituting for Walter Cronkite. For the latest news early, watch the CBS Morning News with Richard Threlkeld and Leslie Stahl. This is CBS.
Stay tuned for Eyewitness News, next on Channel 5, WTVF, Nashville.
Problem. Children's eyeglasses are too fragile. Here is the solution. Bionic eyewear. Extra strong. With a Adjustomatic construction to absorb more punishment than conventional frames ever could. Hudson's Bionic eyewear will be sweeping the galaxy in a variety of styles, sizes, and colors for boys and for girls.
Your headquarters for Bionic Eyewear